Conference finals start on Tuesday, and I'm excited to watch some good basketball. My name is Hawk. Let's talk hoops. So we officially have our conference finals playoff bracket. The number 2 Celtics play against the number 8 Heat, and the number 1 Nuggets play against the number 7 Lakers. Shout out to, first off, both the Lakers and the Heat for being 2 play-in teams, the 7 and 8 seed, to go through the play-in tournament and get all the way to the conference finals. Now, granted, they weren't like the 9 and 10 seed who won in the play-in tournament. They were still the 7 or 8 seed and before the play-in tournament started, but still, to go through that, to be those lower seeds and come through and make it their way to the conference finals is extremely impressive from both organizations. I want to do a quick preview of some of the things I'm looking forward to seeing from all 4 of these teams in their respective matchups. I'm gonna start out East with the Heat and the Celtics. I think this is going to be really interesting. The Heat and the Celtics both, honestly, up and down the roster, are both teams who have a lot of fight in them. They have teams who their bench is going to show up and do the best they can on every night. They're going to commit to defense. I think some teams have better personnel at certain positions than others, and we'll get into that in a second. But everyone on that roster is going to play hard. They're going to play their role, and they're going to play with some heart and energy. So I'm excited to see that series. The Jimmy Butler, Jayson Tatum matchup, I think is going to be really exciting and really good to watch. I'm very curious to see how often Jimmy is going to guard either Jayson Tatum or even Jaylen Brown. We saw in that closeout game against the Knicks that Jimmy didn't guard Jalen Brunson for the majority of that game. And Jalen Brunson honestly had a really, really good game. But when it came down to that closing last possession, who was on him? It was Jimmy. So I wouldn't be surprised if, to try to conserve Jimmy's energy, because they're going to need a lot of him on the offensive side of the ball, that if the Heat try to either run some zone, mix up a couple of things, they're going to be asking a lot out of guys like Strus, Lowry, Caleb Martin, and Gabe Vincent to do their best to guard Jaylen Brown and Jayson Tatum on the perimeter. I think you're going to see a lot of schemes. You're going to see some doubles. And that's why I say the Heat, I'm excited to see what the Heat do, because coaching-wise, if you look at the team, Spoelstra, I think we all could agree, is the better coach. So because of that, I wouldn't be surprised. Like I said earlier, some double teams, some zones, some scrambling, some gimmick defenses, if you will, because I think the Heat are going to struggle to guard the 2-headed monster of Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown. I know you can put Jimmy on one of them, but then you're gassing him on the offensive side of the ball. And like I said, you only can put him on one of them, and they're both amazing. Adebayo, I think he's going to need to step up a lot for the Heat this series, and it's not going to be easy. We just saw Al Horford low-key lock up Joel Embiid last series, and they still have Robert Williams III. They have a really good dynamic duo of paint defense, and honestly, Marcus Smart and Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown do a very good job of, when necessary, doubling down and being able to recover quickly to get out the shooters. On the Celtics side, just as much as I'm curious of how often Jimmy Butler is going to be used to guard either Jayson Tatum or Jaylen Brown, I'm curious to see how often Jayson Tatum or Jaylen Brown is going to be used to guard Jimmy Butler. Because we all know Jimmy is one of the best at getting to the line. He's good at drawing fouls, using his strength, getting to his spots, and getting to that free throw line. You don't want to get Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown in foul trouble early. They have the benefit of people like Marcus Smart and Derek White. But truthfully, I honestly think they're a little too small, too weak to guard Jimmy if he really wants to get into his bag and get to his spots. There's good defenders, don't get me wrong, but I don't think they can guard Jimmy Butler. You're going to see a lot of Jaylen Brown on him. So that's going to put more pressure on Jayson Tatum to continue to be consistently good offensively. We saw him struggle at times in that Sixers series. But if Jaylen Brown's on Jimmy, he might get not tapped out and gassed, but I think he's going to have his handful guarding Jimmy Butler, honestly. But offensively for the Celtics, I think they have the advantage here. They have more offensive weapons. We got to remember the Heat are still missing Tyler Hero. That's a solid 20 points a game they're going to be missing. And no offense, shout out to a lot of the guys from the Heat that we mentioned earlier, the Vincents, the Struses, the Kyle Lowrys. They have stepped up big for them, and they've each honestly had a big game where they've stepped up throughout that series and that Knicks series so far, and even before when they played against the Bucks. But I do think the Celtics have more offensive weapons. We already talked about Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown. We know what they can do. But Malcolm Brogdon has been solid for the Celtics all playoff long. Marcus Smart, we know, can be viable to have a big game out of nowhere. Derek White stepped up big for them. Al Horford found his three-point shot this year, and that's, I think, also going to be big, because if you put Bam on Horford, that's low-key going to pull him out a little bit. So I see a lot of Kevin Love guarding Horford. We'll see how that goes. Now, we all remember that Eastern Conference Finals last year that went to Game 7. The Heat were one Jimmy Butler pull-up 3 from potentially going to the NBA Finals. So we know it's going to be a good matchup. But I'm giving the edge to the Celtics, because I think the Celtics, based on what we've seen so far from the Bucks, what we saw from them in the playoffs so far, what we saw from the Knicks in the playoffs, I think the Celtics so far what we've seen, have a better offense than either of those teams. We know the Heat do a very, very good job of making the game ugly and bringing that total score down to a manageable range for them. But I just think the Celtics have more weapons and more options. I wouldn't be surprised though. This is gonna be a 6 or 7 game series in my mind, but I'm giving the nod to the Celtics. Switching gears to talk about the Lakers and Nuggets, I'm really excited to see this series. Mainly because I truthfully believe at this point, a lot of people are already punching the Lakers ticket to go to the NBA's finals. And I think a lot of people are sleeping on the Denver Nuggets and Nikola Jokic. The biggest question I have to start out is, how do the Lakers defend Jokic? Because yes, we know Anthony Davis is a really, really good defender, but Jokic is a bigger, stronger body. And in an event that if in case Anthony Davis ends up in foul trouble, who do they bring off the bench? Like, what is their next option here? Do we see some Tristan Thompson minutes, which sounds disgusting to me? Does Jerry Vanderbilt get some time on him? Because a lot of times when Anthony Davis isn't on the floor, the Lakers honestly are just running small. I don't know if they have the option or ability to run small if Jokic is on the floor. I think it's an option that we'll see, but I don't know if it'll be viable because yes, while they might be able to run small, it's still not like they're knockdown snipers. Because a lot of teams when they run small, it's because they have snipers and that's pulling the big out of the paint. The Lakers to me don't feel like they have the snipers to be able to force Jokic to step out. Anthony Davis, once again, solid defender. We'll see what that happens there. And on the flip side, I'm curious to see Jokic guard Anthony Davis. Anthony Davis, I think, has a benefit of the faster foot speed, but it's not like he's about to overpower and bully Jokic, at least in my mind, in my opinion. And while Anthony Davis, I know, can step out to that mid-range, we haven't seen a lot of 3-ball from Anthony Davis so far in this postseason. And to be honest with you, I think that's a good thing. He's been operating in that mid-post area, getting some of those floaters, those mid-range jumpers falling. But we've seen a lot of threes fall from Jokic, so that might pull Anthony Davis out of the paint. And now you're opening up driving lanes for Jamal Murray, cutting lanes for guys like Bruce Brown and Aaron Gordon. I'm very curious to see what the Lakers do defensively against the Nuggets, because offensively, the Nuggets have a lot of weapons. Defensively for the Nuggets, who guards LeBron James? Is it Bruce Brown? Is it Aaron Gordon? Is it Michael Porter Jr.? I think you'll get a mix of all three, and we'll just see what the different looks do. I like the Nuggets in this series because I think they just have a couple of more options. I think they have a couple of more bodies that they can depend on and try to throw at LeBron and throw at Anthony Davis to do a couple of things. But in that same breath, just like I said, who is the backup sitter for the Lakers? In the same breath, who is the backup for the Nuggets? Because sometimes when Jokic isn't on the floor, who are they bringing off the bench to guard AD? You're going to see some Aaron Gordon on him. You might even see some Michael Porter Jr. on him at times, some Bruce Brown on him at times. So there will be times that I think both Jokic and Anthony Davis are going to have a crazy size advantage on their matchup. It's going to be, can they take advantage of it? Will we see a more offensively oriented Jokic like we did in some of those moments in those Suns series where he had that 50 ball? I mean, they lost, but he still had that 50 ball. From a coaching standpoint, looking at Michael Malone and Darvin Ham for the Nuggets and Lakers respectively, I'm looking forward to it because both of these coaches, at least so far in this playoffs, have made adjustments. Both of these coaches, Darvin Ham, first-time head coach, Michael Malone, we know have been a head coach for a couple of seasons now. But both of them have been willing to make adjustments. We saw Dennis Schroeder get the starting role in that closeout game against the Warriors. If I had to check some boxes and see which team was better at which things, I would say the Nuggets probably have the better offense, but the Lakers are really, really good defensively, and they have some really good defensive personnel. I think this series has an opportunity to be a really good, similar to what I said about the Warriors series going into it, the Warriors-Lakers series, just a clash of two different styles. But instead of more so inside-outside focused teams, because Jokic, he'd be banging in the paint and stuff like that, I just think it's more so of an offensive juggernaut versus a defensive juggernaut. I'm looking forward to this series a lot. If I had to pick somebody, this is honestly the tougher matchup for me to pick through. I'm confident more so on my Celtics pick over the Heat. But for this one, I see the vision with the Lakers. When they made all those trades, I was like, if they get the right team, I was saying it all season, they can be really good and make it to the finals, if not the Western Conference Finals, and now they're here. But the Nuggets and Jokic have been the best team in the West all season long. They've dominated all season long. If the Nuggets play their brand of basketball that I think they could play, I'm going Nuggets in 7. I think either way, this is a 7-game series, and right now I'm leaning Nuggets. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. Who's coming out of the East? Who's coming out of the West? And I'll see you on the next one. I'm looking forward to these games. I'm out. Peace.